On what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, a bride never made it down the aisle. Moments before the ceremony, her own twin sister opened fire, 11 shots that shattered a family and exposed a secret connection no one saw coming. This isn't just a story about jealousy or madness. It's a story about a past buried too deep, a truth revealed too late, and a wedding that turned into a crime scene. Ava and Aria Morgan grew up in a quiet town tucked between rolling hills and long stretches of farmland, a place where everyone knew their names before they ever introduced themselves. As identical twins, they shared the same deep brown eyes, the same gentle features, and the same childhood memories. But their personalities formed two very different halves of the same story. Ava moved through life softly, thinking before she acted, choosing calmness over conflict. Aria, on the other hand, lived with intensity, feeling every emotion as if it were larger than life and reacting to the world without hesitation. Their differences never created distance. Instead, they balanced each other perfectly. From the moment they learned to walk, they stayed close. They spent summers exploring abandoned barns, winters building snow fortresses in their backyard, and school years sitting together during lunch, watching the world with shared curiosity. Their parents often said that when one sister felt joy, the other felt it too, as if their hearts beat in the same rhythm. As teenagers, they protected each other fiercely, defending against heartbreaks, disappointments, and the small cruelties of growing up. Their connection became something the community admired, a rare example of siblings who never drifted apart. As adults, their bond only grew stronger. They lived in separate apartments, but met almost every day, updating each other on work, family, and future dreams. Friends saw them as a perfect pair who would never betray or hurt one another. No one believed anything could break their loyalty. They planned vacations together, shared clothes, and often finished each other's sentences without effort. The town viewed them as inseparable, almost mirror reflections moving through life side by side. Because of this, when tragedy finally struck, no one could understand how such a deep connection could unravel so violently. Ava's decision to get married arrived like a sudden spark in the Morgan household, surprising everyone with its speed but filling the air with excitement. She explained that she had met someone who made her feel safe, valued, and understood in ways she never expected. Her gentle nature often kept her quiet about her personal life, so the announcement felt like a glimpse into a joyful secret she had been carrying. Her parents welcomed the news with warm smiles and immediate planning, imagining flowers, music, and a perfect ceremony. Aria celebrated with them, hugging her twin and offering support, but a cold weight pressed against her chest. She knew she could not share the same excitement because she carried something Ava knew nothing about. Years earlier, Aria had fallen into a relationship that began with charm but ended in emotional destruction. She never found the right moment to speak about it, and with time, silence became easier than reopening old wounds. She told herself the past was gone, buried under new responsibilities and new routines. She assumed Ava would never cross paths with the man who once made her feel powerless. Aria kept her secret tightly sealed, believing she had protected herself by refusing to revisit those painful memories. As wedding plans grew, Aria tried to match Ava's enthusiasm. They visited dress shops, tasted cake samples, and sorted through color themes. Ava glowed with happiness while Aria forced herself to smile, hoping her discomfort would fade on its own. She convinced herself that Ava's future would be different from her own past, safe from the shadows she once lived through. But deep inside, a faint worry stirred every time she imagined Ava stepping into a commitment Aria no longer trusted. This quiet fear waited, unspoken, beneath every celebration. A few weeks before the wedding, Ava invited the family to a small dinner so everyone could finally meet Liam Carter, the man she planned to marry. The atmosphere felt warm and light, filled with soft music, scented candles, and the sound of their parents preparing a meal in the kitchen. Ava moved around the room with an excited glow, adjusting table settings and adjusting her dress, completely unaware of the storm that was about to rise. Aria tried to calm her nerves, assuming the dinner would be simple and harmless, a pleasant step toward Ava's new life. She rehearsed polite questions in her mind, hoping to support her sister without overshadowing her moment. But everything changed the instant the front door opened and Liam stepped inside. Aria's breath caught painfully in her throat. Her vision blurred for a moment, and the room felt smaller. Liam Carter was not a stranger at all. He was the man from her past, the one who left her emotionally shaken and afraid to trust anyone again. Aria felt frozen in place, unable to move or react. Liam greeted everyone with an easy smile, showing no sign of recognition toward her, as if their history meant nothing or had never existed. Ava proudly introduced him to the family, unaware of the silent panic building inside her twin. Their parents welcomed him warmly, impressed by his confidence and charm. Aria struggled to steady herself, avoiding eye contact and keeping her distance. She kept hoping Liam would slip, react, or show any sign of acknowledgement, but he remained calm and smooth, blending perfectly into the family's excitement. Throughout the dinner, Aria's stomach twisted with dread. She realized that Ava had unknowingly chosen the very man Aria had spent years trying to forget. And now he stood at the center of their happiest moment, pretending the past had never existed. Aria left the dinner feeling as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. The moment she stepped outside, her mind flooded with memories she had tried for years to bury. She remembered the emotional manipulation, the hollow apologies, and the slow unraveling of her self-worth. She thought she had escaped that chapter forever, yet here Liam was, standing beside her twin as if he had walked into her life again by design. The shock clung to her like a heavy weight, making every breath feel tight. She returned home, unable to sleep, replaying his calm smile and Ava's joyful expression over and over. In the days that followed, Aria struggled to function normally. Her thoughts scattered, bouncing between fear, anger, and confusion. She wondered whether Liam recognized her and simply hid it, or whether he saw her as insignificant enough to forget. Both possibilities terrified her. She worried that Ava might soon experience the same emotional pain she had endured, yet she felt trapped by her own silence. Every time she tried to imagine telling her sister the truth, she pictured Ava's excitement fading into disbelief and heartbreak. Aria couldn't bring herself to destroy the happiness Ava waited so long to find. The pressure built each day, turning small moments into overwhelming triggers. A wedding dress fitting made Aria feel faint. A casual comment about Liam's kindness made her chest tighten. Her family assumed she was simply stressed by the wedding preparations, unaware of the storm intensifying inside her. Aria began avoiding family gatherings, fearing she might reveal the truth without meaning to. She felt like she was balancing on a thin wire, with her past on one side and Ava's future on the other. And as the wedding date approached, Aria sensed that her fragile control was slipping faster than she could hold on. Aria reached a point where simply avoiding her thoughts no longer worked. The fear inside her kept growing, pushing her to understand who Liam had become since their past ended. Late one night, she sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open, her hands trembling as she typed his name into search bars. She scrolled through old profiles, archived posts, and casual updates, hoping to find signs that he had changed. Instead, she found pieces of a pattern forming in ways she wished she had imagined. Several women appeared briefly in his life, mentioned in photos and comments before disappearing without explanation. Every short relationship felt eerily familiar, echoing the way he had once moved in and out of her world. Aria started comparing timelines, noticing how he formed connections quickly, strengthened them with grand promises, then left just as fast. She read comments from people who hinted at sudden breakups and emotional instability, though none described details. The more she searched, the deeper her suspicion grew. She even reached out privately to an acquaintance who had once known him. The brief response she received only increased her alarm, suggesting that Liam often hid aspects of himself until it was too late for the other person to step away calmly. Aria documented everything she found, saving screenshots and copying dates into a small notebook. She convinced herself she needed to be prepared in case she chose to speak to Ava. But each new discovery made it harder to remain silent. Her nights turned restless, filled with anxious thoughts and unanswered questions. She no longer trusted her own judgment, unsure whether she was overreacting or finally seeing the truth she once ignored. The more she uncovered, the more she sensed that Ava was heading toward the same emotional disaster Aria had barely survived. Aria continued digging through Liam's past, unable to stop herself even when exhaustion blurred her vision. She organized everything she had collected into folders, lists, and timelines, hoping that a clearer picture would ease her growing fear. Instead, it revealed a disturbing pattern she could no longer ignore. Each relationship Liam entered followed the same structure. He moved quickly, created intense emotional connections, and convinced his partners he was the ideal choice. Then, almost suddenly, everything shifted. Messages turned cold, plans fell apart, and his partners were left confused and emotionally drained. Aria recognized every stage because she had lived through it herself, trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment that had taken years to heal. The more she studied the pattern, the more convinced she became that Liam used affection as a tool. He seemed to build trust only to break it, repeating the same behavior with different women. Aria imagined Ava reaching a point where she would feel trapped in the same emotional maze, unsure of how she had ended up there. That image tightened around Aria's chest, feeding her sense of urgency. She felt responsible for preventing the same harm she had once endured. Her fear no longer felt like simple anxiety. It evolved into a mission she believed she could not abandon. Every hour she spent analyzing Liam's history deepened her conviction that the wedding needed to be stopped. She believed telling Ava would break her heart, but staying silent would destroy her future. Aria's thoughts started to twist, influenced by sleepless nights and overwhelming guilt. She convinced herself she was the only one who could protect Ava from a repeating cycle. The pressure built until it filled every moment, turning her worry into obsession. And as the wedding day crept closer, Aria felt as though time was running out faster than she could act. The morning of the wedding arrived with bright skies, soft music, and an air of celebration that spread through the venue like a warm breeze. Guests began arriving early, admiring the floral decorations and the elegant outdoor setup that Ava had chosen with such excitement. She moved between rooms with a peaceful glow, adjusting small details and checking on preparations. Her joy seemed effortless, untouched by the weight that had consumed Aria for weeks. To everyone present, Ava looked like a bride stepping into the happiest day of her life. But Aria could barely focus on anything except the pounding rhythm of her own heartbeat. Aria stood in the corner of the bridal suite, watching Ava get ready. Feeling as though she were witnessing a countdown, she could not stop. Her hands trembled whenever someone mentioned Liam's name. The sound of laughter around her only sharpened her anxiety. She noticed how Liam interacted with guests outside, smiling confidently, shaking hands, and presenting himself as the perfect partner. Every gesture reminded her of the charm she once believed in. To the guests, he appeared flawless. To Aria, he appeared dangerous. As the morning progressed, Aria moved through the venue in a haze. She checked the time repeatedly, each passing minute tightening the pressure in her chest. She inspected every corner of the ceremony area, looking for any sign that might justify her panic, even though she knew the real danger wasn't physical. It lived inside the man waiting to marry her sister. She watched Ava step into her wedding gown, looking radiant and hopeful. The sight pierced Aria with guilt and fear. She felt torn between protecting her sister and destroying a moment Ava had dreamed of for years. But the closer the ceremony approached, the stronger Aria's dread became, as if something irreversible was already in motion. As the guests settled into their seats and the final preparations unfolded, Aria wandered through the venue with a sense of rising panic that refused to let her breathe calmly. She moved behind the decorated archways, across hallways lined with flowers, trying to steady her thoughts. Every sound felt sharper, every detail more overwhelming. She kept replaying Liam's past in her mind, imagining Ava's future entangled in the same painful cycle. The walls seemed to close in around her as her fear turned heavier. She felt as though she were watching a disaster form in slow motion, unable to warn anyone in time. While searching for a moment of quiet, she stepped into a small dressing room tucked behind the ceremony area. On a chair beside the mirror lay a phone, unlocked and buzzing with notifications. She didn't intend to look, but the name on the screen caught her attention immediately. It belonged to a woman she had never heard of. Aria picked up the phone with shaking hands, telling herself she was only checking for something harmless. But what she discovered shattered any remaining hope she had held on to. The messages revealed a secret relationship continuing even during the week of the wedding. Liam had sent affectionate notes, future plans, and excuses to keep the woman waiting. The tone was familiar, warm, manipulative, and full of promises that sounded painfully like the ones he once used with Aria. She read message after message, her fear transforming into something darker and heavier. The proof she had tried to avoid was now undeniable. Aria's pulse quickened, and her thoughts spiraled as she imagined Ava walking into a marriage built on lies. The betrayal felt personal and immediate. It pushed her past the edge of fear into a storm of anger, desperation, and helplessness. In that moment, Aria felt something inside her break, leaving only the belief that she needed to act before it was too late. Aria stepped out of the dressing room with the phone still shaking in her hands, her breathing uneven as the weight of what she had seen pressed down on her chest. The world around her felt distant, softened by the ringing in her ears. Guests continued to chat. Music drifted through the air, and wedding staff hurried to complete final tasks, but Aria moved through it all as if trapped underwater. Every step felt directed by a force she no longer controlled. Her thoughts repeated the same images: Ava smiling, Liam lying, and the future that would unravel if nothing stopped this moment. The fear that had consumed her for weeks now burned into something sharper and far more dangerous. Minutes before the ceremony was set to begin, Ava slipped behind the venue, adjusting her dress and fixing a loose detail on her veil. The quiet path behind the garden was calm, decorated with lanterns and soft petals. Aria followed, unable to hold back the storm rising inside her. Her heart raced, her legs felt unsteady, and tears threatened to fall, but anger overpowered everything else. She remembered the gun she had hidden in her clutch, a decision she once convinced herself was only for protection. Now it felt like the only tool she had left to save her sister from a future she believed would destroy her. Ava turned slightly, unaware of the danger approaching from behind. Aria's vision blurred as panic overtook reason. Her breathing quickened, her grip tightened, and her fear twisted into absolute certainty that this was the only way to stop the pain before it began again. In a moment of overwhelming emotion, Aria raised the gun, her mind collapsing under pressure too heavy to carry. 11 rapid shots tore through the quiet path, shattering the stillness and sending screams echoing across the venue as Ava fell to the ground, her wedding day ending in chaos and irreversible tragedy. The sound of the gunfire sent shockwaves through the entire venue. Guests froze, some screamed, and others ran for cover as wedding staff scrambled in confusion. Within minutes, security rushed toward the back garden, following the echoes of the shots. They found Aria standing motionless, the gun limp in her hand, her eyes empty and distant. Ava lay on the ground surrounded by scattered petals, her white dress stained and torn. The scene felt unreal, as if time had broken apart and left only devastation. Aria did not resist when guards took the weapon from her. She did not speak, cry, or attempt to explain. It was as though all emotion had drained from her the moment the gunfire stopped. Police arrived quickly, securing the area and guiding shocked guests away from the scene. Aria was placed in handcuffs and led to a patrol car, while cameras from early arrivals began recording the unfolding tragedy. Investigators searched the site, collected evidence, and examined the phone Aria had discovered, finding the messages that had fueled her breakdown. Liam denied everything, insisting he was unaware of any wrongdoing, but the digital trail raised questions that complicated the narrative. Still, nothing could reverse the damage that had been done. The town was shaken for weeks. News outlets covered the case nonstop, painting Aria as either deeply troubled or tragically protective. Community members struggled to understand how two sisters known for their closeness could end in such horror. True crime forums picked apart the timeline, debating whether the act was driven by fear, jealousy, trauma, or emotional collapse. Aria remained silent, offering no explanation. Her breakdown, her research, and her final actions became part of a chilling reminder of how unspoken pain can twist into something irreversible. The Morgans' once admired family bond became a national tragedy, leaving everyone haunted by the question of whether any warning signs could have stopped what happened.